Buongiorno a tutti. I'm very sorry not to be able to speak in Italian. Francese, it was possible, but I think English is better for all of you. And so I want to thank you very much, the Ca' Foscari University and the Department of Humanities, which invited me for this semester to be able to work on manuscripts at the National Library San Marco and work with also anthropologists and some specialists in philology here in Venice. And I am an anthropologist, a fieldwork anthropologist specialized in Africa, the Caribbean. I did some fieldwork in the USA too. And so it's a kind of serendipity which brought me to Dante studies, because in Canto 19 of the Purgatorio, which is the fourth cornice of the Purgatorio, which is the center of the Purgatorio, which is also the center of the full development of the Commedia, you find a reference to Geomancy, which is something very strange, because usually in Inferno, the scholars know very well that seers and fake prophets are damned. They are in the, as far as I remember, they are in Canto 20th, and so they look all the way around, and so they are punished, and they are supposed to be bad people, and their art is just nothing but crookery. That's all it's supposed to be. So from this point of departure, the Dante scholars usually consider that the reference to Geomancy is not really, excuse the vaporetto, is not necessarily something of importance. Actually, Alessandro Palazzo, who's an Italian scholar, very prominent scholar of Geomancy in the Middle Ages, showed very well in a recent paper on Dante and Geomancy that Geomancy was not considered as magic at all. It was not magic. It was not like witchcraft. It had nothing to do with any kind of necromancy. It had nothing to do with a forbidden practice. It was the equivalent of astrology, and astrology was everywhere. And we even know, because one of his sons, I think it's Pietro Alighieri, said that when he was in Bologna, that's a poetry written by Pietro. Pietro says that he took classes in astronomy with Dante, with his own father. So Dante knew perfectly astronomy, which was astrology. It was totally, at the time, it was the same thing. So he knew very well, Dante, what was astrology about, and he knew, and that's my hypothesis, that what was Geomancy too, because Geomancy is the equivalent for the Earth of astrology for the skies. So I developed a very radical hypothesis, which is the following. If astrology structured Paradiso, Geomancy structured Purgatorio. So I had to work on technical aspects of Geomancy, based, and my point of departure, of course, is the mentioning of the Geomancers in Canto 19th. So this is, of course, something that everybody knows. It's a representation of Purgatorio, which is, of course, a mountain on an island. Okay. Geomancy here appears on exactly in the middle. I can show it to you. it's Geomancy is mentioned at the end of the exit of the cornice of the idol. It's the first one. It's the first one. It's exactly in the middle, the space middle. I'm not talking about the text middle or the temporal middle. It's exactly at the end of the first cornice. And so my unit of analysis is not textual, it is a space unit, spatial, which what I mean is that I'm looking at all events that occur in each of the cornice of the central part of the Purgatorio canticle, but also at what's happening in the first part of the 10th first canti of the Purgatorio canticle, which is the ante-Purgatorio. And I focus on Canto 19 as an example of this kind of analysis. Okay, so that's a representation of Inferno, as you know. I just mentioned that the seers, the diviners, are damned in hell. So that was misleading in a way, I think, about Geomancy. So this is one manuscript that I used, actually, from Bartolomeo da Palma. So one of the reasons why Geomancy has not been analyzed as a source from the Commedia, for the Commedia, is that the usual vocabulary of Geomancy manuals of the time does not fit the Commedia. It doesn't work. Except one of the Geomancers of the time. His name is Bartolomeo da Palma. Bartolomeo da Palma produced a kind of Geomancy which was original, with different names, with slightly small differences, but which are extremely significant for the Commedia. For instance, one of the names that he uses, Bartolomea, for one of the figures is Mons Excelsus, which means the highest mountain. Okay? The other Geomancers of the time call it Laetitia, joy. But he calls this figure, the figure that the other ones call Laetitia, he calls it Mons Excelsus. As you can imagine, there's a strong affinity with what Purgatorio is. It's a mountain, and it's a mountain of joy. He also uses a very interesting word for two figures. Those two figures are, in the classic Geomancy, they are called Cauda Draconis and Caput Draconis. Since 1140, the first Geomancy manual that we have, those figures are called this way. Bartolomeo da Palma uses the word arbor imum and arbor altus, which means the highest tree and the lowest tree, or even arbor imum could mean the roots of the arbor, of the tree. Okay? As you know, all the Dante scholars know that in the gluttony cornice and in Eden, the trees are absolutely central to the story. Okay, and so if you use this terminology, then triplicities of Geomancy show up. What I mean is that I'm going to give you an example of what is. This is, for instance, Fortuna Major. This is one of the figures. This is the figure that Dante mentions himself in Canto 19. He mentions exactly this figure here. It's a figure of the sun, and he says that's the moment when the Geomancers see Fortuna Major in the skies. Okay, but what's even more interesting is the following. I'm not following my PowerPoint, but it's okay. We don't really. Why? It's not. I'm sorry. Okay. Trying to show you something. Okay. Take the two first, N1 and N2 and N1. Okay, the two first ones. The two in the chart. Just take the two first on the right hand side up, and then the N1 which is under. Okay. So when you have two of them, you get the third one. When you have the number one, the N1 and N2, then it produces automatically the N1. Why? Because it's a process of a mathematical process of addition, and if you take N1 plus N1, then you find M2. Okay. So when you look at the transformation of the tree in Eden. Okay, the tree is represented as dry, and then it reflourished. Is reflourishing with new flowers. Okay, when you take arbor imum and arbor altum, then you get carcer. Carcer is the triplicity of these two arbor figures. And when you look at the text, that's the moment when the car is linked to the arbor, to the tree. So you get, when you look at the text, you get the three exact words that Bartolomeo is using for this arbor tree triplicity. The colors that show up with the flowers when the tree flourishes are exactly the colors that Bartolomeo describes for this figure. So it's not pure casualty. The colors that are used by Dante to describe the flourishing of the tree are the colors that Bartolomeo da Parma is using for this precise figure. Okay? What's the relationship between Dante and Bartolomeo? Of course, Bartolomeo was teaching in Bologna in the 1280s. First thing, he's publishing, he's writing his main treaty in 1288, and he was, both of them at one moment after Dante was exiled, were patronized by the Cerchi family. So the Malaspina family, both of them. We know that because the manual, Bartolomeo's manual, is dedicated to the Cerchi family. So they were at the same moment in the same place. There is no doubt about that, and they were in the same circle, family circle of the Cerchi. So there's a potential relationship between them. Second thing about Geomancy in Dante's time, all those manuals are in Latin, all of them, except one that was found in 1999 in Firenze, in a very bad shape, but it's a manual in Bulgaria, in Toscana, and the manual can be dated exactly 1280-85 because it's describing one event that was occurring at the time. So we have the certainty that in Firenze at the end of the 13th century, Geomancy was circulating in Bulgaria, in Tuscany. Okay, so that's a lot of things to show that Dante was very well aware of Geomancy. And my hypothesis is not that he was only aware of it, but he used it as a narrative matrix. He used it to build the narration of the Purgatorio. I can't really enter in details, but what I did was to look at the text when he enters the first cornice until he leaves the first cornice, and I first found the first 4 mothers, which correspond to the text, and then rebuilt the chart of Acilia, which is the idol. And what I found as a judge is Via. Via is the figure of movement, the figure of the contrapasso. That's the figure of people who have to move. The Via is the figure of the moon in Geomancy, and it's the figure of people who have to move around all the time. And so that's exactly what you have as a contrapasso in the cornice of the idol. It's Via. And it's not only that, the figures of Geomancy correspond to moments in the narration of the cornice from the beginning to the end, with at the beginning the moon rising and at the end the moon declining. So let's go, if we can, to something that I like also very much, but unfortunately I don't have the triplicity. Just let me explain to you. The dream of the siren, okay? The dream of the siren corresponds exactly to the triplicity of Venus, which is a combination of amicio. Amicio is the figure of losing, okay? Amicio is the figure of losing. I found in the Geomancy texts a description, physical description of this figure, which corresponds exactly to the Femina Balba at the beginning of Canto 19th. Exactly adjective after adjective. She's, how do you say that in English? Her hands are broken. Yes, and she has a disrupted vestment, clothes. And when you look at the description of Amicio, the figure in Geomantic manuals, the physical characteristic of this figure correspond exactly to the characteristic of the siren in the first appearance of the siren. Then the siren transforms itself into a very nice person, very dangerous too, and there is a donna, a woman who comes up and tears the clothes, and the horror of the siren shows up. Okay. So when you take those two elements, Amicio, which is the bad aspect of Venus in Geomancy, and Puella is the good aspect of Venus, and it's another Geomancy. When you combine them as a triplicity, then you find caput immobile. The head, it's called a tristitia, but it's also the head down. So if you're familiar with Canto 19th, you'll see that when Dante wakes up, he has his head bent down, and Dianteill tells him, put your head up. That's exactly what you find, and it's exactly the vocabulary corresponding to the Geomancy sign of Caput Imu. There is no doubt about that. So, is it all of that total casualty? Hazardous? How do you say that? No, hazardous? I don't believe it. To what extent? My position is radical. I think he used it completely from the beginning, the first canto of the Purgatorio till the last one, number 33. I have strong evidence, but the main one, it's also almost a smoking gun. Can we go back? How long is it? So let me show that to you. Okay. That's a smoking gun. Look at that. Probably can presentazione, animazione, presentazione. Okay. Look here. This is a geomantic chart. Okay. Look at the judge here. What's the name, the number of the judge? Can you read it? Here, the last one, the number 15. It's P. So, the judge in a geomantic chart is always the 15th letter of the Latin alphabet of the time, and it's the P. And my hypothesis is that each of the cornice has a judge, and this judge is the P that is written on Dante forehead. Two manuscripts, one in Oxford, the other one in Vienna, show this chart. Both of them are Bartholomeo's. So it's almost a smoking gun. All of you know that the P is absolutely central in the Purgatorio, because he goes from one cornice to the other, and each P is wiped out. And so at the end, he has no P, so he's purified from all the sins. This is exactly what you have. And my hypothesis is that each of the cornice correspond to a judge. So in the case of the Canto 19th, the judge is via, exactly this one. It's the first and the most simple sign of geomancy, and it's the sign of movement, of activity. It's a sign of, it's exactly the contrabasso of Acedia. Exactly. And the 7 cornices are, all of them have a judge which is the contrabasso of each of the scenes. You have 16 possible 16 possible figures, but only 8 of them can be the judge. So you have 7 cornices with 7 judges, so there's one left. And the one which is left is Populus, and Populus corresponds to Eden, and it corresponds to the people of God, and it corresponds to the judge. It's the judge. Il popolo is the judge of the church. So it matches the full, even maybe too much. I don't know, but this is what I find. This is what I find by reconstructing each of the charts with the vocabulary, the lexicon that I find at the beginning of each of the convention. So the paper is about to be published. It's been a long time because there was a lot of controversy, as you can imagine, with Dante scholars, in Italy especially. But it's something new, coming from outside of the field, of course. Because in addition, I know how this works really in practice right now. It still works. I mean, geomancy is still working and used in Africa, in the Middle East, in India. It's not something forgotten there. It's forgotten in Europe, but not there. And at the time of Dante, it was everywhere. I don't know how many dozens of manuscripts we have in Europe at the time. It was incredibly popular everywhere. Popular in among courts, because a lot of it is to give advice, pieces of advice to the princes, but also to the people. The people wanted to know if it was the good moment to put weeds in the ground or not. So they asked the Geomancers to do that. Thank you very much. Sorry for being too long.